I don't know where we are. We're 91?
91.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, these dapim are this week's parsha. I was just learning the parsha, and it's all this stuff: hitting the Eved, killing the Eved, woman is pregnant.
Oh, any word from Genauer?
I don't know if Ernie spoke with him or not. You heard Walter yesterday asking him to call.
I heard he was in and out of the hospital. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
When-
what I heard from his nephew
When was that?
A
2
while
weeks
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No? Ernie? This works all the time. Oh,
Johnny.
Johnny.
Hello.
hello.
Where's the chief?
Good question. Oh.
I'm gonna stop this.
Ken,
I'm sorry.
it's catchy.
I know it's contagious. Yeah.
Very.
You're right, George.
Uh, it's
Ernie.
funny
Hey, everybody.
with the rain, it's worse.
Ernie, I just realized my stupid question last week. It was exactly this week's parsha.
Which one? Which one are you talking?
The second or third Aliyah, hitting a Eved Ivri and killing, not Eved Ivri, every Canaan killing him, resulting in
Right.
the death penalty. This week's parsha.
Right. Yomo Yomayim.
Yeah.
Which stop are we in?
91.
91.
On my head.
91.
We're talking about whether Beis Din has the chiyuv to estimate not just for capital punishment, but even for damage payment. For example, the size of the rock that a person used to throw at somebody and damage to them. They have to figure out, did that rock have the proper mass and size to do the damage before they inflict damage payment? And there was a debate yesterday whether the aid could be a die-in or not. And also whether or not you need the umdin of Beis Din. So, v'aminu ana, afilu temer Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva normally does, he said you don't need umdin of Beis Din. We brought up a Raisa that seemed to suggest that you do. So the Gemara says, so the shore that did damage The owner of that shore ran away. So they couldn't adjudicate the case because you need to have the
Oh. Ernie,
the
I think it's
bride.
frozen.
Who's frozen? I am?
yeah,
No,
It looked
You are.
like it.
no.
No. So we had a barisa.
Sorry, Ernie, where are we holding when the Daf there?
Tzaddik Aleph near the top.
Near the top. Okay, thank you.
We said a tam, there was a difference between a tam and muad. Whether you adjudicate the dine mominus first or the dine misa first. We said if you adjudicate the dine misa first for a muad, he doesn't have to pay for the monetary damage. And now we're saying it's because the owner ran away. Or says Isha Barach, Kilo danu dine nefashos, Hechi dainale dine mominus blow by. The same rule applies if the shore only damaged something. You cannot demand payment from the owner unless the owner is present in Besdin as well. The cases have to be the same. If he ran away, ran away. So the Gemara answers the Kabul side. He accepted, there were two witnesses, and he accepted the witnesses. Remember, witnesses will have to give a warning. You know, if this and this happens, you're going to be required to pay, or you have to get malchus. So he accepted the Eidim, and then Barach, then ran away. But the Gemara says, sof meicha mishtalim. Remember, there are rules when a shore does damage. Where do you pay from? Sometimes you have to pay from the goof, from the corpse, or from the shore itself. So the Gemara says, and how are we going to get payment from the owner when the owner's not there? So the Gemara says Meridia. It's interesting. The owner ran away to China, but there's damage payment to be made. So they take the ox and they rent him out to people for plowing. And with the money, they pay, with the money for the rental, they pay the damaged owner. So the Gemara says, Yachi, Tom also Nadaina Dine Mamanos Beresha V'Nishtalim Meridia. We had a case where a short Tom damaged, and then he killed somebody. So Beis Din does adjudicate both. So why don't we take the Tom and adjudicate him? Hello?
yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adjudicate him, do the same thing, rent him out for plowing, V'Nishtalim Meridia, pay the damage payment, and then adjudicate him for Dina Foshas. Why did we say in the case of a time he was potter? Amrav Mary Brave Rav Kana Zoisumeres, Ridia Kalia Demarahu. Renting him out for plowing purposes, that's considered like getting money from the owner's bank account, from his aliyah, not from the goof of the shore, even though technically the goof of the shore is working for the plowing. But a short tom only pays migufo, and this is not considered migufo. That's why technically it would be putter in that case because the owner ran away. Okay, so iboilu, let's theoretically, do we say yesh oimid l'nezikin? We established from the pasuk yesterday, egg growth, O Even, right? You have to estimate when it comes to killing somebody. Is there the same din when it comes to damage payment? Oh, ain't no nazikin. Or no, we look at the damage and it has to be paid, period. We don't care. We don't do the same umdin. So, mi aminan, liktalahu daminan. It's only when we're going to put somebody to death with capital punishment. B'hachi nafka neshama, b'hachi loy nafka neshama. We can say, this rock could kill, this rock cannot kill. So that's why you have to do an umdina. Aval nizikin kodu, any shear of either damage or a damaging implement is enough. Oidim aloishna. Or we say, no, you have to do an umdana as well. And if the rock was not heavy enough to do the damage, we would say he's potter from payment. So Toshma, come in here and prove. Mabor, we know one of the mechanisms of causing damage is somebody digs a pit in Rosh Hashanah, the guy falls into the pit. So, Mabor, Sheyesh Bokidei Lahamis Asor Tfachim. They determined, Chazal, that a bore that's 10 Tfachim deep has the power to kill. Avkol, any other thing that you dig in the ground, like a cave or any other, or pit or a tunnel, sheyesh bo kedei lamis asar tfachim. Hayu pchusim asar tfachim. If it was less than 10 tfachim, v'nafal l'socho shor chamor v'meis, and a shor chamor fell in there and died, potter. However, that's regarding the din of killing the animal. Huzak bo chay. If the animal broke its leg, it just got damaged, you'd be chay, no matter what. My love, mimata lamala kachashiv. We're calculating from the bottom to the top. The hachikoma. Mitefach vadasar, from 1 tefach to 9, misaleka, aval nezakinika. That boar doesn't have the power to kill, but it does have the power to damage. Comes out almash nezakin b'choldu, even at 1 tefach deep. So any type of thing that can cause damage, there's no specific shear, which seems to imply shmamina ein oimdim l'nezakin. We don't sort of do this calculation when it comes to damage payment. Gemara says low. You cannot prove from that price. Because really, milmala lamata kachashiv. We're calculating from top to bottom. If there's asara, if there's 10 tvachim misa ikka, there is capital punishment, or it's a death-dealing bore. Pachos masar porta, even if it was 9.999, nizakin isa misa leka. There is damage payment, but that's 9.9. It's not 1. It's a little bit less than 10. Nizakin ikan misa leka. But we do need to know whether it's 6 versus 5 versus 4 versus 3, because there might be a difference in what kind of damage it could create. And then I'd be left with the principle that there is this kind of estimation when it comes even for damage payment. And then we need whatever shear we need based on the damage that we see. So the Gemara tries again, Toshma. Person has an Eved, he struck him near his eye, and he blinded him. Or al azno v'chirsho, he struck him near the ear, and the Eved became deaf. Now, why are those things important? Because an Eved Kanani goes free if you knock out his eye. So Eved Yoitze ben Lecherus. Now, let's say you didn't strike him directly on the eye. Keneged Eino. You struck him near, but comes out Eino Roa. He can't see anymore. O Keneged Esno, near his ear, but not directly on the ear. Ve'eno Shomea. Ein Eved Yoitze ben Lecherus. The Eved doesn't go free. My time. Lav mishum de be'inin humdana. It's because for this type of damage, we need an estimation. And so we obviously calculated that being struck in this way was not enough to blind him. Shmami na yesh humdana l'nezikin. Where it says, lo, Yishum damrinan hu de avais nafshe. He scared himself. It wasn't the blow that caused damage to cause blindness or deafness. He like psyched himself out through fear. Kedetanya. Hamavis is chavir. Let's say I jump behind my friend and I scare him. And some kind of damage happens. Potter midine adam, chai b'dine shamayim. There's been no direct damage of anything, at least like something that you can measure. You'd be potter from human court, but you did something wrong, and Shamayim will hold it against you. Keitza, Toka, ba'ozno v'chishu porta. You blew a horn right next to a guy's ear, became deaf. Now, he didn't do a maisa to the ear itself, so he's potter. Also, the tocho ba'ozno, you grabbed the ear, you grabbed him, and blew in his ear. You did a maisa, and therefore chayiv. And the Gemara seems to say that the differences are whether, since it was just a grama alone, Toshma, Chamisha Dvarim, if a human being strikes another person, we say you have to pay 5 things. Nezek, Ripui, Sheves, Boishes, Pagam, Oim Dinoisoi. So first, we estimate how much was he damaged. We've learned about that. How much has he sold as an Eved in the market without this damage? And how much would he be sold in the market as an Eved with the damage? That differential payment, one is $200, the other is $150. The difference would be $50. That's the nezek. V'noistin lo miyad. Nezek you have to pay right away. Now, ripui, medical payment, the sheves, the fact that he's going to be off of work for 2 weeks, you have to pay him a daily rate, how many days he missed work. That's called sheves. So, adshi yisrapeh. The calculation and the payment is until he's healed. So they calculated how much he's owed, but he got weaker and weaker. And they estimated that the payment would have been $200, but it ended up being $300. Ein noisin lo ela kamo shamdu. They go with the original estimation, not more. And vice versa, amdu v'hivri. He healed quicker than they thought. There you stick with the, again, also, they thought he was going to be off for 2 weeks. And he was only off for 1 week. Noisin lo kol ma shamdua. Now, you see very clearly that Beis Din is doing financial estimations. And it's for nezek. Shmami no yesh oimid l'nezokin. It seems from this price that we've proven that there is a process of estimation when it comes even to damage payments. So the Gemara says there's no proof. Lemei gavra kama liktzer mia maka, kama lo miktzer lo kama boila. To do an estimation based on this blow, how long he's going to be sick for, and how much he's not going to be sick for, that certainly Bezin has to do an undana. Our question, ki kama boilon, lemei mid cheftza. We've been dealing with the rock or the stick, whatever implement was used to strike the person. Were those implements, ihavit high nezika olo, were they capable of afflicting this damage that we see in front of us? So based on that narrowing of our question, do you have any proof? So Toshma, Shimon Atimoni Oimer Ma Egrof, Miyuchat Shemosr Le'edo Le'edim, a fist. We estimate the Edim and the Kaha and the Sanhedrin has to figure out, is this a big enough fist to cause the damage that we see? Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson hits somebody. We look at their fist and we say, oh yeah, this fist can cause this damage. And you look at somebody else and we say, no, it wasn't able to cause this damage. So we see clearly, at least with this issue of the implement that caused the damage, there is this kind of estimation. Shmamina, that's a good proof. Amar Mar. We mentioned in passing, Amduhu v'hivri, that we think he's going to be sick for 2 weeks, but he got well quicker. Noistan lo komash amdu. We give him what original estimation was. This is Mesaile le Rava. This supports a concept that Rava advanced, Amar Rava. Haiman shamdu lekula yuma. They took him to the doctor. And the calculation was, he's not going to be able to work a whole day. But he got better half day, and he worked half day. We give him the full day's payment. Why? Min Shemayu derachmi. It was Rachmanas from Shemayim. But the responsibility of the mazik to pay remains. Then we learn in the Mishnah, Rokak v'giyabo haroik. If somebody spit and it landed on his garment, he pays arba me'ozuz. Amar lo shanu ela boy. Rav Papa says, no, it's not on his garment. It has to land on his skin. Ava bevigdo lo. But if it's just on his garment, he wouldn't have to pay. So the Gemara doesn't understand. Benevi kibayish bitform. Why is it any worse than if a person embarrassed him using words? Amri barav mishmeit Rav Yossi baravin zoysemeres. Baishu bidvarim poter mikula. Somebody calls you a bad name, embarrasses you, but it's with words. You don't pay the special knas of boishes. Even in Shamayim, you embarrassed him and it's a bad thing. Bezin cannot cause payment to be made for that. And hakolafi kvoidoi. The embarrassment is based on the covet of the person who was embarrassed. So iboilu tanakama, lakula kama or lachorma kama? Is it a leniency or stringency? Do we say lakula ka'amar? You have a poor person where, based on his personal covet, we wouldn't think that he would get so much. And therefore, we reduce the payment from 400. You have Rothschild and the Mishnah said there was a maximum of 400 zuz, but no, for Rothschild, you'd have to pay 1,000 zuz. What did it mean when it said Hakol Lefi Kvoida, Toshma? Midikam Rabbi Kiva. In the Mishnah itself, Rabbi Kiva said, Afilu anim should be Yisrael, Roy noisok kilu ein b'nei chorin, sheyardu min nichseim. We see all Jews as if they were, good upper middle class balabatim that are temporarily down on their luck because they have good genes. Shehem b'nei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. So Shema Mina, Bava Kama Daf, that the Aniyim should get more money.
Amen.
Oh no, that the Havamina was that the Tanakhama said, based on an Ani, you should pay him less. But the Kiva, no, we're not makel by the Aniyim, because everybody's equal. Shmami, no, it's a good raya. We want the guy to be paid more. We had a case where a man took off a shaitel of a woman in the marketplace. Umi avinan zman, and there he was given time to pay the damage. You have to pay right away. Kilo yavinan le zman. When do we not give time? There was a wound. Because the Chasrim Amoina, because of the wound itself, the person has less money. Aval boishas shelo Chasrim Amoina. The Gemara seems to think that reputational damage does not cause direct financial loss. So in that case, Yavina, we do give time to pay that off. Doesn't have to be paid right away. And then the Mishnah gave us a story, Shamara Omer Pedachatzera, the guy who took off the shaitel of this woman went and spied on her. And then if she removed her own hair, he wanted to say she's doing it herself at home. Why do I have to pay her? And Rabbi Kiva gave him an answer. Tanya, that you might be potter for something you do to yourself, but if acherim do it, you would have to pay. Armala Rabbi Kiva, tzillas b'may madirim v'leis acheres be'adecha. You spent a lot of money on all of this surveillance, cameras and equipment, and you didn't understand the underlying principle. Adam Rishai l'chava b'atzmo. That a person can damage himself. Now, on the other hand, we have a baraisa that suggests that a person cannot damage himself. Why is there a stira in Rabbi Kiva? The person is not allowed to damage himself to draw blood. But Khan, the baraisa that seems to suggest you're allowed to do it, that's boishas. Person can make fun of himself. He's entitled. More it says, our Mishnah talked about embarrassment. He took off her shaitel. That's not a direct damage. It's not a chavola. And yet, there in the Mishnah, we said even though he's not permitted to do it, to make a wound in himself, he'd be potter, he wouldn't have to pay anything. And even if it's boishas, it seems like he's not permitted to embarrass himself. So hachi kamar le. This is what Rabbi Kiva meant to say. Loma by boishes or the certainly in a case if a person embarrasses himself, he's allowed to do it. And certainly if somebody else embarrasses you, right? The one who embarrasses is chayv to pay. A person is not allowed to cut himself. Still, if other people make the wound, they certainly would be chayv to pay. Now, this concept of ein adam rishon l'chavel ba'atzmo, is that so? Vatanya. Yachol shenishbala rabatzmo v'lo hayra yepoter dinim min shavua, in an oath. Person takes an oath that I'm going to damage myself, and then he didn't. So I might think he'd be potter from korban shvua. Talmud loymar lahara o lahetiv. The requirement, if you annul your shvua, is whether or not you wanted to do bad or good. Ma'atava, you're chayv, you did a shvua, you wanted to do something good. I might think that's only something that's elective, reshus. And for example, not doing a mitzvah. So afhara. So when you're mechayiv a korban for taking a false shvua, it's again only a dvar reshus and not an avera. So that's why avi nishbal arab atzmo v'lo hera. That's why I created this case of a person who took a shvua to damage himself and he didn't damage himself. Well, if you're having a havamina that you could damage yourself, that seems to go against this principle that we said a person cannot damage himself. So Amar Shmuel, here when we talked about ra to yourself, that's not wounding yourself. It's somebody takes a shvua, eshe b'tainis. I swear that I'm going to fast tomorrow, and then he doesn't fast. So you're allowed to say I'm going to fast. That's mutter. Now, the kavose gabe haras acherim. Now, in that very same baraisa, where if you take a shvua to do bad, what if you're going to do bad to other people? So does it mean la shivein b'tainis? Means I'm going to cause those people, I'm going to take a shvua that I'm going to say those people are going to sit and fast. So acheri meisiv lu b'tanisa? Can I force somebody to fast? Or is this in? I can lock them up in a room without food. And so I do have the power to make them fast. But the Gemara says, Vatanya, what's an example of taking a shvua to do bad to other people? I take a shvua, I'm going to hack him with a stick on his head, and I'm going to give him a skull fracture. So if I'm wounding somebody else, when it comes to being rot to myself, must also mean a wound. And it seems like I'm allowed to do it. So Ella Tanoi, this issue, whether a person is allowed to wound himself or not, is a machlokes tanoim. The ikalamanda amar ein adam rishon l'chavel ba'atzmo. There is a Tana who holds a person cannot wound himself. The ikalamanda amar adam rishon l'chavel ba'atzmo. Man Tana shesham islay. Who is the Tana that says you're prohibited? Ilema Haitan, who the Tana? The following. It says in the pasuk, Va'ach estimchem l'nafshosechem edrosh. This is after Cain killed Hevel in Bereshis. Hashem warns the human being that I am going to call for your blood if you spill somebody else's blood. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Miyad nafshesechem ed rosh timchem. From yourselves, I'm going to demand your blood. And Rabbi Eliezer extends it to mean somebody who commits suicide will be punished. So the Gemara says, maybe Dilma Katola shiny, maybe taking someone's life. You're not allowed to take your life, but maybe you would still be allowed to wound yourself. Elahai Tanu, it's the following Tanu, the Tanya. Mekarim alames. You can tear garments because of your grief over death. V'lo midarkei hamoiri. It's not considered one of the customary practices of the Amorites in Canaan that we're not allowed to do. It's a acceptable minhag Yisrael. Amar Elazar Shamati shemakri al hameis yoyser midai lo yike mishum bal tashris. If I go overboard, I tear all my garments. I get malchus because I'm over bal tashris. I'm not allowed to destroy good items. V'kol shekein legufo. There's some cultures that whip themselves when they're in mourning. But your body is more valuable than your garments. So you're certainly going to be over bal tashchis if I mazik my body, even if it's because of avelis. So that's not a proof, says the Gemara. V'dilma b'godim shiny. It's more stringent to damage begodim to say to the loy hodar. It's a financial loss that cannot be retrieved. Yes, you can go to the tailor and get it to sew up, but it's never like a new garment. But the human being striking himself, he will heal. And Kiad Rav Yochanan Karlamani Machbuda, Machbadusa. Rav Yochanan used to call his clothing my covet. The person gets honor when he's dressed properly. Rav Chizda Karav Mazgi Beni Izma Vahaga. When he would walk in the thorns, Madli Lulamane. Now remember, underneath his thorns are his legs. So he was more careful that his begodim shouldn't get damaged by the thorns than his legs himself. Because Omar, Zeh Mala Aruka, my skin is going to heal. Zeh Eno Mala Aruka. My baguette that got torn cannot fix itself. So maybe only the pasuk of Miyad Nafshesechem Edrosh is, or Mikarela Mace is going to be chayiv, because it's his garment that's not going to return. But there's no proof that if he's choivel himself, that there's a prohibition. Ella ki haytanu. The Tanya Amar Belazar Kafar Berebi. Hello? Jacob? Okay. Is that you who opened the door? What do you mean? Is there somebody on the door? Somebody opened the door. The front door. Amlazar Kafar Berebi. What does it mean by a nazir? It describes the nazir that he committed some kind of sin. What sin did he commit? Normally, a person's allowed to drink wine. Okay, I'll see you in the morning. Normally, you're allowed to drink wine. And he willingly prevented himself from drinking wine. And that's a chet for his nefesh. And valod varim kal v'chomer. Umaz zeh shelo tzirat smol min hayayin. Nikra choyte, somebody who held himself back from drinking wine. That's all he did. He's called a sinner. Hamitzar atzmei kol davar. You cut yourself, you wound yourself. Alachas Bava Kama. So it's clear, Rabbi Elazar Kafar is the one who holds that a person is not permitted to be mechavel himself. It would be a prohibition. Then akoitzitz nitiyosav. If you cut down your trees, so you're not permitted to do so. But if you did it, you'd be potter. But if somebody else comes into your backyard, cuts down your trees, I have to pay you. Tony Rav Rachana Kamei Dirav. Somebody comes
Obviously, it's not talking about fruit trees. It's talking about regular trees.
so far. Let's see. It's even regular trees you're not allowed to cut down. Certainly fruit trees. Certainly.
Fruit trees, for sure, you're not allowed to cut down. but
Certainly fruit trees. We'll see the Gemara. We're going to be dealing with this today. So a person comes, Shoiri Haragta, your shore killed. Or my trees you cut down. You have to pay me. So the guy admits it. But he says, Ata martali lahorgo. You told me to kill your ox. Or you hired me. Ata martali lekoitzitzo. You told me to cut it down. Potur. So Amr leim kain lo shavkas chayla brisa. Kol kamine. If a guy will be able to get away from with this taina and never have to pay damage payments. Amr lei ismiya. Did you forget this baraisa? Amr lei lo. But titarge masnisecha. You have to explain the baraisa like this. That's talking about bishara oimed la riga. A shore killed and has now been adjudicated to be put to death. Or be'ilan omid l'ktzitza, there was a tree that was leaning over too much, and Beis Din came around saying, this tree has to be cut down, it's dangerous. Or it's an ashera tree. So then the mazik with his taina has something to go on where we believe it, that he was told to do it. So the Gemara says, Iachi, Micah toile. So if the owner who's claiming damage payment because his shore was killed, he admits that the shore was oimed la riga, was adjudicated to be killed. So what kind of financial losses are for him? The Amar lei anaba ina lemevid ha-mitzvah. You know what? I wanted to do the mitzvah because it says lo tasim damim beveitecha. You have a mitzvah to get rid of an evil thing in your house. And there was a kiyum of a mitzvah, either to cut the tree down or to kill the shore. And you took away that mitzvah from me. That's the payment I want. Where do we see this concept? The Tanya. It says, V'shafach v'chisa. There is a din of kisu yadam, that when you shecht an oaf or a chaya, there's a mitzvah of kisu yadam, you have to cover the blood with dirt. A guy shechted a chicken and somebody jumped in and covered the blood. Rav Gamliel required that the man who jumped the gun and covered the blood, instead of allowing the shochet to do it, has to pay 10 zuhuvim because he was mevatel the shochet from doing the mitzvah. Same here. We're talking about a case when you said, kill my shore, and he killed it, and he's demanding payments. He's demanding payments for the mitzvah. Now, this issue that Walter brought up about cutting trees, Amar Rav, Dikla de Torn Kava. You have a palm tree that's still producing a kav of dates. You can't cut it. It says in a pasuk, Kisatsur al ir, if you siege a city, lo sashchit es etza. So lechura, the lav is baltashchis from this pasuk. Meisvei kama yebezayis v'lo yiktetzu. How much does an olive tree have to be giving olives in order not to cut it down? Roiva, a quarter of a kav. So in the previous price, it said it had to be a kav. Shiny zaysim b'chashivi. It's got to be only a quarter of a kav of olives because olives are more chashuv. Omer of Chanina. Lo shchiv shibachta brei ela de kotzitz te'ena. My son didn't die only because I cut a fig tree down below Zman before its time. Omer Avina, v'maya me'ula b'domi muter. Listen to this. If this was a very valuable tree, or it was profitable after you cut the tree down, more than what you would get when you sell the payros, you're allowed to cut it. And there's no baltashkas. So the Rambam brings halacha. Ein koitzitzin ilan Michael. Lechatchila, you shouldn't cut a tree that produces food. You shouldn't cut it down. Ela imkain hiskin. Vein osel davar muad. Unless it has become very aged and it's not producing a lot of food. And how much an olive tree? Fourth of a kav. However, muter liktzotz ilan srak. An ilan srak is like a tree that does not produce fruit, like an elm tree, like a maple tree. And, says the Rambam, v'chein muter liktzotz ilan Michael, even a tree that produces food, when im dmea eitz yikorin, if it's very valuable wood. And Rashi and the Ramban say that the heter is only when you're under siege. So we see it's machlokes rishonim this din. Let's do the baraisa. Tanya Ma'achi. The pasuk says, "Eitz asher teda kilo eitz ma'chalhu otosh tashkit v'charata." Only a tree that you know that does not produce fruit can you go and cut down. So rak eitz asher teda, that's Ilan Michael. It's a tree that produces food. And kilo eitz ma'chalhu, what's a tree that doesn't produce food? Ilan srak. Other trees. But there's going to be times where even a tree that produces food, you're going to be able to cut. So eventually the mitzvah is going to include even fruit trees. Mata modomer kilo eitz machal. Lahagdim srak lamichal. If you have a preference, there's a kedima. First cut the non-fruit bearing trees first, and then only then can you cut the fruit bearing trees. We'll continue this tomorrow. We're not through with the
Okay, very good.
By the way, Ernie, shkoyach,
Yes.
shkoyach, but by the way, I don't think